Tracy, here it is, our last week, but we're still, there'll be weeks to come. So this isn't our last. All right. So we're going to conclude this little journey through Proverbs, and we may even do more of this in the future because there's such great crossover. As you all know, I mean, this is kind of the crux of the ministry of Links, is trying to take golf and something we're passionate about and get some spiritual insight, even from something as silly as chasing a little white ball around a green pasture and trying to get those eggs in those holes. So here we go. Are you ready? So this is our fourth week now, talking about those things that are very small but exceedingly wise. We talked about the ant, we talked about the badgers, we talked about the locust moving in rank last week, and now, to culminate this, is really something so central to our staff's calling. I tell our staff all the time, Tracy, and I read this to them. Proverbs 30, verse 28, the lizard you may grasp with the hands, and yet you find it in kings' palaces. And you say, what is that in the Bible for? Why is that? Well, there's spiritual application here, and it's powerful, and there's also golf application as well. But the spiritual application is, look, I'm small. I've never built a Fortune 500 company. I have very few skills. And yet, through the game of golf, haven't you been introduced to incredible opportunities and people that are truly modern day kings in a sense?
Oh, absolutely. I would say that being a golfer has opened so many doors, not only to relationships, like people of our culture in the country club world, but also a young golfer, a high school golfer, college golfer, young pro golfer, that because I'm a professional golfer, they trust me.
Right. It is truly amazing, the game of golf. I see it all the time. I think, where would I be without golf? Golf has kind of defined much of my life, and I could have had an amazing life maybe outside of golf, but golf opened doors. And by the way, what do you do with a lizard if you find? Well, we're in the desert right now. Lizards come into my house all the time, and you never step on them. It's a little messy. You get them. My girls would take them, and then they put them back outside, or take them back outside. They come back in. You don't step on them. You put them back outside, and you get used to it. Sometimes very tiny little lizards. Well, it's the same way with you and your calling. You may say, well, there's nothing I can do for God. I mean, I can't start a fellowship. There's just nothing I can really do. Well, no, not you particularly, but remember, if you fly in rank and you build your life on the rock and the foundations of your faith, and you're prepared, guess what happens? You move into the fullness of your calling, and it is free. And I'm going to go back now to verse 18 of chapter 30. It says, there are three things which are too wonderful for me. This is Agur talking about this. He says, four of which I just don't understand. He says, the way of an eagle in the sky, the way of a serpent on a rock, and the way of a ship in the middle of the sea, and the way of a man with a maid. Now, what does that mean? These are things that are functioning perfectly and beautifully in the environment in which they were created. You build a ship to be on the sea. You don't build a ship to be off in the desert, sitting out taking on sand in a big storm. You build it for the sea. When you see a ship sitting out in the middle of nowhere, you go, what is that doing there? It should be out in port or somewhere out sailing the sea. Have you ever tried to walk across a rock? And there's a lot of jogging that happens around on these rock trails around here, and people slipping and falling all over the rocks, and constantly people are falling off ledges, and helicopters are having to be flown in. And then you see a serpent, and it just goes across a rock, and it's just like, that is amazing. Or an eagle so effortlessly flying through the air. Do you feel that way in your spiritual life, that there's an ease? Have you moved into your calling? Maybe it's even starting a fellowship. Maybe you say, well, I can't facilitate, or I don't know the Bible well enough. Do you know technology? Could you be a technological component to a Links fellowship? Or maybe you're just kind of a Pied Piper. Everybody knows you, they kind of like you, and you can just invite people. That's an evangelist. That's a serpent on a rock. It's easy for you. It's effortless. And if you're prepared and you know Jesus and you've built your house on the rock and you're listening to the Spirit, well, guess what happens? It just is effortless. And I see that in golf too. When all those things are finally in place, there's a friend of mine named Jamie Mulligan, not a close friend, but a friend, Patrick Cantlay's coach. He's over on the coast, and he talks about the wheel. And you have to have all the components of the wheel, and that's your physical and your, your mental health and all of the different components. Spiritually speaking, when I see that wheel in order for somebody and they're prepared and they're listening to the Spirit and they're part of a community and they're not stupid, they're open to reproof, Jesus becomes, well, quite famous. And to our tagline, helping you change the conversation at your club, conversations can change. Have you seen that around golf where all of a sudden the conversation shifts, but you were prepared to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, I see it in the work that I do now with young athletes who I just come to them like, I'm here to talk about life. And they may not be a believer, they may be young in their faith, and where we start just talking about life struggles, eventually we get to a spiritual aspect.
Right.
And so I don't come at them first with spiritual strength, but it's more of just, if I'm right with the Spirit and I've done my preparation.
And you're a locus, and you've done your prep.
And I'm standing on the rock.
Standing on the rock.
That there's something that will ooze out of me, and I don't have to try to force it. We all struggle in golf. I mean, so a few look like a serpent on a rock, but even, Tiger went through this, and Jack had lulls in his career and things like that. But I will tell you, in a spiritual sense, if everything that we've been learning over the last 7 weeks is part of your core identity, and you love reproof, you're part of a community, there's preparation going, you're not bragging about yourself, all the things, can I just tell you, the Lord has a purpose for your life. He can use you right where you are, though you may feel exceedingly small. And He can do it, and guess who gets the glory when that happens? The only person that rightfully should get the glory, and that's Jesus. Absolutely.
So Tracy, thank you. It's been great, and I can't wait for you to beat my brains out on the golf course. Maybe you can be my partner today. Anyway, we hope this has been helpful. We look forward to, and again, go look at the PDFs on this study, and you'll see it. Thank you, Dennis Darville on the East Coast, for all you do for our community. Have a wonderful and glorious day.